You were told to be yourself, and you believed it. Now you wonder why authenticity feels like a trap. You watch people who seem less genuine succeed while you struggle in your honesty. The advice sounded liberating, but the results have been isolating. Something is fundamentally wrong with what you were told, and the gap between the promise and your reality keeps growing. Here's what they did not tell you. Yourself is not a fixed point. It is a collection of patterns formed by reward, punishment, and accident. When someone says be yourself, they are asking you to worship the outcome of your conditioning and call it freedom. This is not philosophy. This is behavioral psychology. The version of you that exists right now was shaped by forces you did not choose, and most of those forces had nothing to do with your potential. You have habits you did not consciously design. You have fears that serve no current purpose. You react in ways that damage your interests because those reactions were useful once, in a different context, under different conditions. The self you are being told to honor is often the self that needs to be dismantled. But dismantling feels like betrayal because you have been taught that your identity is sacred. The people who gave you this advice were not trying to limit you. They were trying to protect you from the exhaustion of constant performance. But they confused two different things. They confused freedom from pretending with freedom from growth. One is liberation. The other is stagnation dressed as virtue. Your personality has a structure. Psychologists call it the Big Five: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. These traits are moderately stable across your lifetime. When people tell you to be yourself, they are often telling you to accept your position on these dimensions and stop fighting it. If you score low on conscientiousness, you should embrace your spontaneity. If you score high on neuroticism, you should accept your sensitivity. This sounds compassionate until you realize what it actually means. It means your limitations are rebranded as authenticity. It means the parts of you that create failure are protected by language that makes change feel like self-betrayal. You are being told that the gap between who you are and who you need to become is a gap you should stop trying to close. But traits are not walls. They are tendencies. They describe what you will probably do, not what you must do. A person low in conscientiousness can build systems that compensate. A person high in neuroticism can train their nervous system to regulate differently. The trait does not disappear, but its expression changes. This is not fake. This is development. The confusion runs deeper than personality. You have been taught that your thoughts represent your truth. If you think something, it must mean something about who you are. So you protect your thoughts. You defend them. You identify with them. But your thoughts are outputs of pattern recognition systems that are often wrong. They are survival tools, not revelation. Cognitive behavioral therapy is built on a simple premise. Your thoughts are not facts. They are interpretations generated by schemas, which are mental frameworks formed through experience. These schemas filter reality. They make you see threat where there is none. They make you miss opportunity because it does not match the pattern. When you are told to be yourself, you are being told to trust these patterns as if they are divine. The Stoics understood this differently. Epictetus said, "You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes them." This is not abstract spirituality. This is functional psychology. The distance between you and your thoughts is the space where you can intervene. Without that space, you are a puppet to conditioning. Watch what happens when you meet someone new. You have an immediate reaction, comfort or discomfort, trust or suspicion. You did not decide this reaction. It happened beneath conscious awareness. Your nervous system scanned for patterns it recognized and made a prediction. That prediction feels like intuition. You call it your gut, but it is often just your history speaking. If your history is full of betrayal, your gut will see danger everywhere. If your history is full of safety, your gut will miss red flags. Neither is accurate. Both feel authentic. This is the problem with instinct. It optimizes for consistency, not truth. So when you follow your gut, when you trust your initial reaction, when you act on what feels natural, you are often just repeating the past. You are selecting the familiar over the effective. And because it feels right, you never question it. Here is where it becomes uncomfortable. The parts of you that feel most essentially, you are often defense mechanisms. Your sarcasm is a way to avoid vulnerability. Your independence is a reaction to abandonment. Your aggression is a response to feeling small. These patterns protected you once. They gave you control in situations where you had none. But now they run automatically, even when the threat is gone. You think you are being yourself. You are actually being your trauma. And the culture that celebrates authenticity has made it nearly impossible to say this out loud without sounding cruel. Shadow integration is the process of recognizing what you have hidden from yourself. Carl Jung described the shadow as the parts of your personality you rejected because they were unacceptable. But those parts do not disappear. They influence you from beneath awareness. Your disgust at certain behaviors in others is often disgust at those same tendencies in yourself. Your sudden anger at small things is often anger at something larger you refuse to face. Being yourself without integrating your shadow means being controlled by what you will not admit. You become predictable to anyone who understands disowned traits. They can trigger you without effort because you have no relationship with the wound. The alternative is not to become someone else. It is to become aware of the mechanisms running you and then choose which ones to keep. This requires something most people avoid. It requires treating yourself as a system to be understood rather than a soul to be honored. You are a collection of subsystems. Your habits, your emotional responses, your narratives about why things happen. These subsystems were installed at different times for different reasons. Some are outdated, some conflict with each other. When you try to be yourself, you are trying to be all of them at once. The result is incoherence. Successful people do not have more authentic selves. They have more coherent ones. They identified which patterns serve their goals and which patterns sabotage them. Then they starved the sabotage and fed the service. This is not fake. This is editing. You edit your writing. You cut what does not work. You rewrite what could be clearer. You do not call this being untrue to your first draft. You call it improvement. But somehow when it comes to behavior, editing is called betrayal. The reason is simple. Your identity feels permanent because continuity feels safe. If you are always the same person, you can predict yourself. You know what to expect. Change introduces uncertainty. It creates a period where you do not know who you are. This is terrifying to the part of your brain that equates the unknown with danger. So you cling to patterns that hurt you because at least they are yours. At least they are familiar. At least you know how the pain will arrive. There is a concept in behavioral psychology called operant conditioning. Behavior that is rewarded increases. Behavior that is punished decreases. You already know this. What you might not know is that intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest habits. When a behavior is rewarded unpredictably, it becomes almost impossible to extinguish. Now apply this to identity. Every time you act according to your usual pattern and get even a small reward, that pattern strengthens. The reward does not have to be big. It just has to happen sometimes. Your sarcasm makes someone laugh. Your withdrawal makes someone chase you. Your anger makes someone back down. Each time the pattern gets deeper. You are not choosing to be yourself. You are repeating what intermittently worked. And because it feels automatic, you call it authenticity. The people who benefit from be yourself are the ones whose conditioning already aligned with success. They were raised with confidence, taught discipline, given models of effectiveness. For them, being themselves means expressing advantages they did not earn, but learned to embody. When they tell you to do the same, they are unaware that your conditioning pointed you in a different direction. This is not an excuse. This is a map. If your patterns do not serve you, you need new ones. Not because you are broken, because you are adapting to a context your old patterns were not built for. You can change patterns without losing continuity. Your memories remain. Your preferences remain. What changes is your response. A person who learns to regulate their nervous system does not become someone else. They become a calmer version of themselves. A person who builds discipline does not erase their personality. They gain access to it instead of being drowned by distraction. The fear is that if you change too much, you will become unrecognizable. But unrecognizable to whom? To the people who benefited from your old patterns? To the version of you that stayed small to stay safe? That is not loss. That is shedding weight. Here is the test. Ask yourself if the thing you call being yourself is actually a choice or just a lack of alternatives. If you say you are not a morning person, is that truth or is it the result of never building a sleep schedule? If you say you are bad with money, is that identity or is it financial illiteracy you never addressed? If you say you are just not social, is that your nature or is it anxiety you named preference? Most of what you call yourself is a description of what you have done repeatedly, not what you are capable of. And the gap between those two things is where your potential lies. You were told that changing for others is weakness, but you change for others constantly. You modulate your tone at work. You adjust your energy around certain people. You perform different versions of yourself in different contexts, and you do not even notice because it is automatic. The issue is not whether you change. The issue is whether you control it. Strategic adaptation is not the same as loss of self. It is the exercise of self. You are deciding which aspects to amplify and which to suppress based on your goals. This is agency. Refusing to adapt because it feels inauthentic is not strength. It is rigidity disguised as principle. The Stoics called this living according to nature, but they did not mean your nature. They meant the nature of reality. Reality does not care about your preferences. It has structures and consequences. You can align with those structures or you can suffer pretending they do not exist. Alignment is not surrender. It is intelligence. You have been defending a version of yourself that may not deserve defense. Not because you are worthless, because that version was built in response to a world you no longer live in. You are allowed to update. You are allowed to notice that the person you became at 15 to survive high school is not the person you need to be at 25 to build a life. This does not mean abandon your values. It means distinguish between your values and your coping mechanisms. Your values are what you care about. Your coping mechanisms are how you protected yourself when you could not get what you cared about. The two are not the same. When you stop defending every impulse as authenticity, you gain the ability to choose. You can ask whether this reaction serves you. You can pause between trigger and response. You can notice the pattern without obeying it. This is freedom, not the freedom to be yourself, but the freedom to decide which self you become. You are not a finished thing. You are a process. And the moment you accept that, the advice to be yourself stops sounding like wisdom and starts sounding like a command to stop growing. You were never supposed to stay the same. You were supposed to evolve in the direction of your potential, and your potential does not look like your past. The people still telling you to be yourself are either winning with their defaults or lying about their effort. Everyone successful has changed. They just do not frame it as betrayal. They frame it as becoming. You have spent years protecting an identity that might be the main thing standing between you and everything you want. That is not a comforting thought, but comfort is what got you here. What comes next requires something else. It requires the willingness to see yourself as raw material instead of sacred ground. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The question is whether you are ready to build.